record. Okay, we're talking to Charles Band today. Tell people out there about the experience of your movie called Quadrant.
Well, I definitely wanted to embark on some movies that were darker and edgier than what I've been doing for the last 10 or 15 years. Part of that is budget driven,
Mhm.
and we invented a Patreon program that's been somewhat helpful. But part of it is also, I look back, I've made so many movies, and the ones in the late 80s, early 90s, movies like Lurking Fear and From Beyond, of course,
Mm.
Reanimator, later on,
Classic.
Free. That's sort of the vibe I wanted to capture. I'm also a fan of film noir. And so we're doing some kind of cool things with this label. I mean, obviously, the movies I think are representing by the kind of new spin on some traditional concepts, starting with Quadrant. Second movie we shot is called Death Streamer, and we just launched the trailer today. But as we release these movies in color, a traditional sort of release, format, 16 by 9, we also have composed and put these together as black and white as well. So about a month or so after the color release across all platforms, we're going to be releasing these movies also in black and white. I think
Ah,
fans of film noir, I think, will appreciate what we're doing and how we're lighting these shows. So it's part of to do something different to address the fact that the younger audience is more bloodthirsty. They want darker, they want edgier, and we're giving them that. And these are fun shows for me to make, and it's pretty ambitious because I'm producing them, but I'm also going to direct all of them.
yeah, that's fun. The last year I saw Godzilla -1 that I saw it in black and white.
Right, right.
Then they did that with Mad Max like 10 years ago. So, and
Yeah.
they did it with Parasite. That's not a that uncommon, but it is fun when it does happen.
Well, it's one off is one thing, but I mean, if it all works out, I'm going to make between 8 or 10 pulp noir movies, and there's some tricks up our sleeves, so that will be revealed as far as the black and white. The other thing we're doing that's kind of neat and different that no one's done is, traditionally today in this digital world, other than a theatrical release, and our movies are not coming out theatrically, but medium to smaller films will first come out on streaming. So
Mhm.
you have to be a subscriber to whatever the streaming site is. You can also usually download to own or rent. So that's sort of the first window. And then a few months later, the movies come out on free sites like Tubi, where you need to sit through the commercials, but nonetheless, you can see the same movie for free. And people wait for that sometimes. And then usually again, a few months later, they'll be out on Blu-ray and DVD, the physical media. So what I decided to do, I think these audiences are very different. And I didn't want people to wait all these different months to get the movie. Plus, we only have one shot of letting the world know the movie exists. So we're releasing the film on August 23rd, a few weeks away, on all platforms all at once. So you'll be able to see it on streaming. You'll be able to rent to own, download to own, rent it. You'll see it on Tubi for free. And you can buy it on Blu-ray and DVD. And we're even going to release it on VHS just for the
What?
fun.
Amazing.
There you go.
VHS is it's like the vinyl for movies now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there are people who collect, and it's fun. I was just at Flashback Weekend, a big horror convention in Chicago, and some people were bringing up, some of my movies that were released in the day on VHS. One guy brought a Betamax of
Oh
some
wow.
earliest. It's like, and then several people brought Laserdisc, which is a
Yeah.
format that a lot of people don't know about. So, I just thought it would be fun to have it available, across all platforms and do something a little different.
Heck, and you could do it because, like, I think a lot of your brand is like retro appeal. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, to some degree. I think the pulp noir movies, yeah, there's a retro vibe because of pulp noir and the fact they were being released in black and white, but they're definitely darker, edgier. They're definitely going to be more bloody, I guess. Boobies will fly. I mean, it's going to have the ingredients. There's no difference other than maybe some of the technology we use in these movies. I could have made Quadrant and Death Streamer in the 80s and 90s. Same
Yeah.
approach, uh, many cases, same talent. I have this fantastic writer who's going to who wrote Quadrant, a guy named Courtney Joyner.
Oh
Courtney
yeah.
wrote movies for
I've
me.
interviewed him before.
Yeah, Puppet Master 3 and
Oh,
Dr. Mordred and Lurking Fear and Trancers 3. And so, you know, we've got some of the same ingredients in these films. The only difference is they do have, hopefully each will have some bit of a modern twist. So for instance, in the case of Deathstreamer, and the trailer just dropped today, so people can go check it out. It is the story of a decadent vampire who lives in this opulent house, and he takes his victims down to a fancy bar. Then they go into a kill room, and he kills his victims, but he also live streams their deaths, and that ties into the fabric of the story. So, you know, and the technology, we didn't. This is not an invention. You know, we literally tricked out these glasses you can buy right now. It's a joint venture between Meta and Ray-Ban. I think it's $350. You can buy these glasses. They're like sunglasses. They look kind of like Ray-Bans, look a little different. You push one button and you can live stream the video, or if you want to record it up to a minute, you can record the video. It's in 4K, so it looks amazing.
Ooh.
So you know, we just put a horror sci-fi spin on technology that exists today.
So there was AI art in this movie, right?
Yep.
And Chuck Serino did that.
Chuck was the sort of the producer. There's a fellow named Mike Seacrest who is the AI artist. I think they're both given credit accordingly. And then Dave Matherly is our overall visual effects guy. You know, to me, AI is just another tool. You know, it works when it works. You know, the idea of creating or substituting actors in AI and trying to graft somebody into a real environment, I'm sure that's going to come. It's not what I think is cool about it. The way I adapted it or worked with it in Quadrant. Did you see Quadrant? I should ask that.
I saw Quadrant.
So what do you think?
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a vibe.
Yes. Thank you. Well,
like a sleazy Matrix.
Yeah, maybe so. I think the acting's terrific.
And I mean that in a great way.
You know, you know, it's about I don't want to spoil it because I think it's actually pretty clever and no one's made a show like this exactly before. But it's about a female serial killer who channels Jack the Ripper. So
right.
It's somewhat current. So in the case of Quadrant, without going into the story too much, when they're in the Quadrant world, which is sort of an imagination world that's augmented by this helmet they wear and some drugs they take. Anyway, when we're in the Quadrant world, we use the technology in there. We use some CGI, we use some AI. I mean, there's only 3 minutes in the entire movie when they're in the Quadrant world. It's 97% a character-driven story about these people are trying to help people with terrible nightmares with this Quadrant sort of experience. And little do they know is the young girl comes in there. She wants to be part of the Jack the Ripper thing, and that she's obsessed with Jack the Ripper, and they think that's her nightmare. That's what she needs to rid herself of. They don't really realize that she's obsessed with Jack the Ripper, and she uses that device not as a cure for her nightmares, but as a thrill ride. And of course, she goes a little too far, and I won't tell you the rest, but you know, she begins to do not good things in the real world.
Well, it's a full moon movie after all. What the heck did you expect?
It's got to be. Yeah, no, it's we deliver. I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to cheat. I didn't want to like a lot of shows today that are horror or edgy dramas. I almost don't believe them anymore. You know, first, not that boobies are a requirement, but you know, if it's a vampire movie, if people are making love, I mean, you know, I keep watching these expensive shows on TV with the girls. She's holding the sheet up like this, and everyone's trying to.
The intimacy coordinators.
Yeah, well, we didn't.
There's no intimacy coordinators at Full Moon.
No, we were very respectful to the actors. We don't push them to do anything that they don't want to do. I mean, I've been making these movies for 51 years. Never a problem, because you have to be respectful to people, and you have to also let them know up front, here's kind of what we expect. And that way there's no surprises on set. You need to know how to talk to people too. So no, I'm proud of Quadrant. I'm really proud of Deathstreamer. Quadrant comes out the 23rd of August. Deathstreamer's about a month later. I think we're on a good roll.
Nice. Well, speaking of AI and technological innovation, I heard from a very reliable source today that you, Charles Band, invented the horror video game. So Is that true? And what the heck inspired you to do that? Because some of those games are incredible.
Yeah, I did. Well, it's sometimes not great to be first, especially if you're 20 years ahead of the time. You go, oh, that was brilliant.
Right.
Well, no, it was actually a dark chapter in my entrepreneurial life. So basically,
Oh,
I started the first independent home video company on earth called Meta Home Entertainment in 1977. We were right after a company called Mag Video that was started by a guy named Andre Blay, and he's kind of considered the godfather of the home video business. Maybe I'm the godson, but whatever it is, we had a successful few years. The business was just beginning to happen. A lot of people didn't understand it. You couldn't buy a deck; you had to buy a big Ben Cartwright console that had the video machine in it, and then you could record off the air. The first 20 movies released on Earth that you could buy for $49.95, which was a hell of a lot of money back in the 70s, were all 20th Century Fox films like The French Connection. And a lot of doomsayers were saying, no one's this is never gonna work. Who's gonna pay $49.95 for The French Connection? How many times can you watch The French Connection? Anyway, these naysayers were proven super wrong. I started Meta Home Entertainment. It's a long story there. I was also making movies at the time. And then video games started happening, the Atari system. And I thought, wow, I already had Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween out on my video label. Why not maybe make a couple horror video games? So I started a company called Wizard Video Games. I licensed the rights to Texas Chainsaw and to Halloween. Went up north to try to find people who knew how to do this. I was not a gamer. There were no gamers. I mean, it's Atari with little,
are you sure?
it was
Yeah.
really silly stuff. But we
Yeah.
figured out how to do it, and I borrowed some money because it was very tight those years. And I thought this is going to absolutely make me a fortune. I'm early on in this brand new business, this video game business. We developed the art, the cool cover. The games were completely ridiculous, but I licensed even the theme. The little guys walking around just like Pac-Man. And I made, I think, 1,000 units of each, maybe less. It's all I could afford. And I went to a consumer electronics show in Chicago. We had the booth, Wizard Video Games, a poster, some fun things dedicated by John Carpenter. And here we are with, I brought a few hundred games to the show, and I could not make one sale.
Oh
None.
my God.
Well, what happened was the buyers back then were like Sears. And I had more than one buyer come to me, very well dressed, and chastise me and say,
Oh,
what are you doing? Video games are for children. How could you
oh.
think of trying to
Well,
sell
so what?
these horror movies? Horror movies are not for kids.
Oh,
Video games are packed. Anyway, basically, I had the fold up shop. I gave some of these away. Some of these are now thousands of dollars because so few are left.
heck, I bet. Yeah.
And yeah, Wizard Video Game lasted about 3 months. And then, of course, dissolved decades later. It's anything
Did
you
you
could
ever
imagine.
meet anyone who worked at Resident Evil and Silent Hill and try to get some money off of them?
Right, right. So, nah. So anyway,
Yeah.
but what I am going to do one day is we have, the original boxes were really cool. They look pretty similar to a VHS, kind of the same size, slightly different shape. And, I'm still working with the same printer that I worked with 40 odd years ago. So we're going to take the original negatives and whatever the hell it was back in the day, and we're going to print a limited edition of those original boxes, which are impossible to find. And, we'll sell them or do something fun with them because it's history. It's part of video game history, and the boxes are really cool.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I love that I learned that literally just this morning doing another interview.
Now, it's cool to talk about it, but it was not cool when you spent
Right.
the money and you were there thinking this is going to turn my whole life around. And I got speeches from these buyers. Back then there weren't like a lot of stores, little stores. There were a few stores bought, 5 here and 3 there. But the big buyers were just flabbergasted that I had the nerve of thinking about selling horror video games to children.
You big old jerk. So, you told me last year you don't do film festivals. Is that your thing? But when you go back to Fantasia Fest, did you have a good time there?
Yeah, I have a good time. It's a lot, the pattern of making a movie, submitting it to festivals,
Yeah.
hopefully being, invited, schlepping around the world, it works if you're doing one movie at a time and then you expose it and hopefully someone buys it, and that's a very long process. I'm a little bit of a movie factory here. I've always been that, and
Oh, yes.
you know, I would take 10 lifetime. Well, let's put it this way. It takes about a year for you to kind of go through the rounds of film festivals to try to place your movie. It's not a month, it's a year. The movie that we're just now releasing, Quadrant, is my 400th movie.
Oh my God. Jeez.
So do the math.
You're right, right, right.
You know, one movie a year, you know, 400 years.
Maybe you're 500 years old. I don't know.
Well,
All right. Well, Charles, thanks for your time. Lots of fun talking to you once again. Tell people again, when does Quadrant come out?
Quadrant comes out on the 23rd of August. It's a few weeks away. I'm really proud of it. You know, if you're timid about blood and some guts and boobies, do not watch it. But I think it's a clever premise. And again, it comes out for the first time across every platform: Tubi, streaming, Amazon, download to own, Blu-ray, DVD, and VHS.
Hey, and the Primevals, is that available now?
It is, yeah. Primevals is out. You can go on Amazon right now and rent it. You can't buy it. I mean, I'm sorry, you can buy it and rent it. It's not streaming yet, like on a, you know, for a subscription on our site. That comes out later this summer.
Okay.
You can also go to fullmoonhorror.com. It's our store, and we're selling a beautiful collection of. It's a 3 Blu-ray collection. The movie, a whole documentary about making the movie. I mean, it took 30 years, so it's a really nice
Oh, yes.
setup if you want to, you know, buy the physical copy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and yeah, check out Quadrant. It's good. It's good.